Get your fists up. Tip cups to the ceiling if you're sick of feeling ripped off. I let my fist off, get lit and lift off. Raise your hands if you with me and you pissed off. I'm standing on the corner of 6th Street. I'm running out of time for this week. My head's pounding, stomach shaking. It's worth it, the hunger makes it.
Hey everybody, it is me, it's Beefy Thiefy, and we are here with another rousing rendition of Completed or Delete. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the series, basically what we do is I take my games that I get through Humble Choice monthly, which is a service where I pay X amount of dollars every month, and I get several games. And I try to cull down, I try to narrow down what I got on my hard drive. So I choose what games I'm going to keep or delete, and I try to pull a couple games from the past library so that I can start narrowing those down as well. So that's pretty much where we're at. This week is this month is the month of August, so we have actually only one game from that. The other games that I'm going to play tonight I pulled from the previous month of July, because I didn't get a chance to play those games. I didn't get a chance to do that complete or delete. And as it happens, this month, for the month of August, was mostly spooky games, horror games, which thankfully I was kind of running low on. I was thinking I might have to do a theme month this October. But it looks like I'm going to have enough different games I'm going to be able to do Spooktacular proper. And we'll be able to do some different stuff. So, with that said, let's continue on. We are going to do our first game tonight, which is a case of Distrust, which was working. You know what I need to do, though? I need to enable my desktop audio and probably bring it down just a smidge. So outside of the trailer, I don't really know anything about the games I'm going to play. That's basically all I've done. I've watched the trailer to try to pick them. I used to just download as many as I could and play them. It's too much time, too much work, so that's kind of where we're at. Woo! Point and click. Perfect. Pokemon X just fell on the gun, but that's alright. So, I don't know. Audio, a little hot. Let's... settings. Okay, so I gotta bring that down just a smidge. Apologies, everybody. There we go. One of these days I'll patch things out through a soundboard and back in and make my life hard, but better for you. Better for you. So I do know that this is a 2D motion graphics game, which I like. I love motion graphics. It's something I used to do professionally, so I woke in my desk chair. Across from me were his piercing amber eyes. They surprised me at first, but I'd known he'd be there. I stretched and said mid-yawn, not very nice to sneak into a sleeping woman's apartment, but his stare just continued. I laughed at his glare. I'd seen San Francisco's shrewd thugs, hardened cops, and deadly politicians, but none could ever match that gaze. I knew I didn't want to have them. Didn't have what he wanted. Reaching in my coat, I took out my knife and flicked it open. I held the knife steady while staring back at him. Look, I said, nodding towards the desk. That's all there is. Take it or leave it. But a detective knows when she's beat. And I knew then he wanted to search the place. And that's what I would do. And that's what he would do. I sighed, knowing my weakness for his type. Alright, I said. Let's look. He let out a gleeful meow in victory. I cut a piece of my apple that the cat had rejected. Always the sore winner. I jabbed, but I was smiling too. Because I was telling the truth. There was absolutely no other food in my apartment. Oh, you. The cat dropped by to the scavenge. He made a lot of noise when he thought I was holding out on him. But right now, the place was pretty clean empty. No food. And I had to prove it to him. The regular white icebox, tinged yellow with age, half blocked the kitchen doorway. My income rarely kept much stock in it, and right now it was empty. The cat had waltzed into my apartment a few years earlier. He kept coming back, though there rarely morsel to eat. He continued loud meowing until I proved to him the place was empty of food. Doesn't matter how doe-eyed you are, cutie pie, we've got no food around, I told him. He licked his chops and looked at me. Apparently, he still didn't believe that. I needed to contradict him somehow, to show him something in the apartment that would prove it was empty of food. The regular white icebox. Empty, I told him. Sorry, fella, there's no grub in here for me either. He stared at me with eyes as disappointed as I felt. Those big yellows always got my soul. Thoughts of my family fill my head. My parents. Parents were still in Chicago, where they'd moved our family in my final year of schooling. I'd returned to California, but they maintained that there were better job prospects for my father in Chicago. His new gigs were never permanent, odd jobs from his brother's contacts. He'd been a painter, a mover, a dockhand, whatever other professions required cheap labor with a few questions. But then a drunk rarely kept much work for long. My mother stuck by him. Whether for her godliness or her stubbornness, I never knew. I always thought her berating only chased him to the speakeasies. But it was the only way she'd known to love him. Wow, getting dark. A loud meow from the cat snapped my thoughts back to the moment. I took a deep breath and grinned and looked at him. I guess you can scram now, I said. Nobody's going to come knocking with food for you, fella. Fine, open the door. Oh, hello. In the doorway was the regrettably familiar face of Connor Green. His company churned my stomach. Might have been his bergamot perfume hung around my nostrils like a lingering unwanted guest, or that sordid smile which further plastered on his face. He stared at me in the doorway with a coy smile. Well, ain't you gonna invite me in? I start closing the door. But he stuck a foot in to stop me. Hey now, he chided. Foul way to treat a customer, Malone. So that was his angle, hire me as a detective. I wondered what the bootlegger would need with a private eye, but he answered without my prompt. Make this quick. I can't take this to the hog house, or the pigs would just laugh me out. And other dicks just aren't as tempting. His grin winded. Thought this was going to be quick, I said, and I started rolling a cigarette. It wasn't quick, and I'd already rolled and tightened smoked when Green finally finished his story. I noted the important bits in my book. It started with a letter, slipped under his door in a white envelope. The envelope contained a single typewritten leaf, which handed to me. It read, "End your game or we'll end you." It had no signature, instead ending with only a small scribble in the bottom right corner that resembled a black hand. Green had a lead on a new rum running scheme. Connection from Vancouver. He'd given a sample to Tiny Paul, the gangster who ran the Tin Spoon Speakeasy from the mob boss Jerry Ferry. That agreed to buy in for more. Green surmised the letter was about his rum running. He suspected Redstone Stable, another bootlegger, of sending the letter. Told me that Stable ran a barber shop during the day and gave me the address. Green needed to know who the threat was from. He'd get Paul's gang to deal with a continuous scheme to get rich. If I go snooping myself, he concluded, folks see me. I'm not trusting people. No trust leads to no customers. I need to play it low-key, which is where you come in. I raised an eyebrow and stared at him through the cigarette smoke. Something in his yawn still twisted. You must have noticed my reticence. Because he said, you know, if I worked closely with Lewis, I'm sure he'd want to protect me as much as any other victim. My uncle. I was still searching for answers after his death. He'd been a man obsessed with helping victims and bringing justice to those beyond salvation. With that ethos, I never understood how he could have taken his own life. Those thoughts haunted me. I'd quit the SFPD and started my own practice, taking his philosophy. Was Green worth my time? Would he be worth Lewis's? Green had tipped off my uncle in a few cases. I wondered if that was enough to warrant my protection. Before I could think past my headache, he threw a bill in my lap. Keep the C note as a retainer. Don't worry about getting in touch. I'll find you later for a chat. He turned down the hallway and let him go. If he was willing to give me $100 for no commitment, I wouldn't stop him. Not bad. Still confused about the whole story. My headache wasn't helping either. Clarity, a trip to the Southern Coffee was usually the cure. Alright. So, I'm only going to call this one now just because I don't really feel like reading out loud for another 20 minutes. I like this. The art style is really, really cool. I like it a lot. Reminiscent of some stuff that I started to kind of play with back in the day, but I never really kept going with. It's really cool. Something if I had ever thought I could make a game out of, I might have continued more on. So, I really, really like it. The story so far is interesting enough to keep me engaged. Right now we know that there's a rum runner who's received a death threat and he's come to hire you for his services. So, cool. I like it. Easy enough to follow so far. Seems like it's going to stay very much in that point and click vein. The problem is without narration, I just don't have the energy or the time to just continue with that tonight. So, that was our first game of Complete or Delete, and I'm going to say completed. I'm going to keep the game. I'm going to take another swing at this another day. Maybe when I have someone else to take over some of the reading for me or do it with some other people. Or, yeah, maybe we do this group thing when COVID's back off. So, but yeah, so that's it. We're going to move on to our next game, which is... Be sure to check out the Is That All podcast for all of your geek news. You can find us anywhere you can stream and download podcasts, and find us on social media at Is That All Pod. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me grow and lets me know that you guys like the content that I'm putting out there. You can also follow me on social media at Beefy Thiefy. Also, don't forget to check out more videos, especially more Complete or Delete.